Hello guys, in this session we are going to cover the emergency registration flow in authenticated scenarios, or you can say limited service mode. Okay, so what happens kind of when someone dials 911 or kind of 112 or 999, but they don't have a SIM card, or could be their account is suspended, or like they are kind of roaming in some different network. Okay, and I think with no roaming agreement. So in that case, like the network is legally obliged to connect the call, but it cannot use the standard 5G AK authentication protocols because like there is no subscriber profile to check. And to handle this scenario, the 5G core enters that in limited service mode, you can say. So here also like we are discussing this also in phases. Like in phase one, that is the RRC connection phase. Like when UE is going to send the initial RRC setup request, so it sets up the establishment cause as emergency. So this tells the G node B to prioritize this connection to above all other traffic. So you can bypass standard congestion control. And here also notice that like the UE identity. Okay, in normal attach, the UE provides a temporary identity, but here because it has no SIMs. Okay, so it is going to simply generate a random value, or the Corridor network gives it a signaling SRB1, you can say. And inside that RRC setup complete message, the UE encapsulates the NAS registration request as well. And now in the second phase, we have the initial NGP message. Okay, so here like now the G node B has the request, and like it need to pass it to the 5G core. So G node B looks at the RRC establishment course. Okay, it knows like this is an emergency, and like specifically kind of selects an AMF from its pool that is configured to support LSM, that is limited service mode. And because there is no SIM, okay, so there is no subscription concealed identity, or so you can say. Instead, like the UE identify itself using the PI, that is permanent equipment identifier, and which is kind of most smartphones are having. Okay, so now this particular registration type is kind of flagged as kind of emergency registration. That's why. Now in the phase three we have we have to verify the equipment. Okay, now here AMF is going to receive the PI, and because there is no subscription identity, so it is going to skip the AUSF and UDL. Okay, so there are kind of no authentication vectors to generate. So kind of then instead like AMF queries the EIR, that is equipment identity register, using N5G EIR equipment identity check get request. And the ER is kind of database of the device hardware, you can say. So it is going to check the provided IMEI against global databases to see if the physical phone has been like reportedly kind of stolen. Then it returns the EIR status, okay, whether it is kind of whitelisted, grey listed, or blacklisted. And AMF is going to take the EIR response, and like it is going to check the operator's local regulatory policies. So in many regions, like if a device is grey listed, the AMF is legally like mandated to allow the unauthenticated emergency registration to proceed, so that user can reach the PSAP. Okay. So when like you are kind of engineering a new core market or some new regional market, so you must deeply understand that country specific telecom regulation like regarding that particular limited service mode. And if the local law dictates that emergency call must go through regardless of the SIM status, so your AMF configuration must be configured so that the emergency registration type and kind of it should be correctly diverting the signaling flow to the ER instead of kind of letting it fail out at the USF. And you should ensure that your EIR is dimensioned to handle these checks with ultra low latency, as kind of emergency call setup times are kind of strictly follow like audited KPIs. Okay, and now let's move to the next slide. So now the next phase is the NAS security mode control, or kind of null security. Okay, So up to this point, okay, AMF has successfully carried the IR, and a kind of view is not blacklisted here, and operators limited service mode policies detects that like we should connect to that particular emergency call. But now like 5G is built on kind of strict trust security, you can say. So how you are going to establish like a secure connection with the device that has no SIM card and therefore like no secret keys to authenticate. Okay, so that's why we need this NAS security mode control. Okay, so normally like this is where like the AMF and UE is going to like lock down the control plane with kind of heavy encryption, and like because here ASF and UDM are kind of entirely bypassed, so there is no master security anchor key kind of KSEF or AMF key, that is KMF, which were like derived in normal case. So in that case, like AMF is going to send a security mode command, and it contains an EAGO, that is for null ciphering, and an IAGO, that is for null integrated. So it also going to pass that NGKSI, that is the key set identifier, and it is setting to the no key. And in that case, like UE is going to accept that and like replies with the NAS security mode complete. And for this duration of this emergency connection, the NAS signaling between the phone and the core network is like going in some clear text messages. Okay, and in the next phase, like that we called as kind of context setup and emergency situation accept. Okay, now here like even though like because this connection is unencrypted, okay, and the AMF still has no provision for the radio network to handle that particular traffic. So for that, AMF is going to send NGAP initial context setup request to a G node B, and like because this is kind of an unauthenticated user, so there is no kind of subscribed NSSAI. Okay, and like no subscribed NSSAI like profile to pull from UDF, you can see. And here like AMF is like simply applies a default emergency routing profile, and just as kind of narrow signaling is kind of unencrypted, so AMF is going to instruct the G node B to drive like radio keys, that is kind of KG node B from the null value, and kind of when the G node B sends the RRC security mode command to the phone, like both the AS or you can say access stratum and integrity and the ciphering are kind of set to null here. And here like we have some restricted AI list. Okay, so now the network assigns kind of a tracking area identity list. Okay, that is kind of restricted to the current serving area, and the network does not want to kind of unauthenticated device like should be freely kind of roaming across kind of geographies. Okay, and here we have also like kind of emergency 5G booty, that is for the network that is the network assigns it a kind of temporary ID, but it is kind of specifically flagged and tagged as an kind of emergency session. So these are all the things it is going to send. So in the next phase, like here, like you is going to acknowledge its temporary 5G booty, and kind of formal registration phase is finished here, and U is kind of officially kind of attached to the network in limited service mode, but like simply being registered like it doesn't connect you to that 911 call. Okay, so registration only opens the control plane. So now the next phase should be the kind of PDU session establishment request with the request. Okay, so in that PDU session request establishment, there should be kind of request type set to emergency request, and this like forces the AMF to find the SMF dedicated specifically to route traffic to the PSEP. Okay, So now from the security operations sector, or you can say SOC perspective, unauthenticated emergency calls like generate kind of massive can generate massive anomalies. Okay, suppose like your intrusion detection system will suddenly see like some clear text message and a null encryption cipher on the radio interface. Okay, which can usually kind of indicates a kind of malicious downgrade attack or simple intercept. Okay, so you should engineer your core. Okay, you must ensure that like your signaling firewall and SOC monitoring tools are correctly passing, or you can say parsing the emergency registration codes so that they do not like automatically drop these life safety calls under like the false assumptions like the network is kind of under attack. And I think that's it from this particular session. I will see you in next session. Thanks.